उसने 10 like he earned 10 lakhs for like one client. What am I doing? Like getting into all
Hmm.
these things, I wouldn't have done, and I wouldn't have taken those steps that I had taken um,
Right.
just to reach that target. Just because he is getting 10 lakhs from a client doesn't mean I also have to get a 10 lakhs from a client. Everybody has great ideas, and the ability to actually execute it, I think, is a quality um, that is important to. And I what I've seen is successful entrepreneurs. That way, I think Nas Daily was one of was a really good interview, because that guy, he is at a level where he doesn't, he's at a level where he needs PR, to be very honest, because a personality, right? You need
Right.
PR, somebody who is going to tell you, like, oh, like, yeah, sabat bolna, don't say this, don't say that. But
Right.
that guy was very raw and very real, very honest. When I think of sales, right, when I'm saying that sales is an important quality to have, um, there are people who like hard sales, buy this, buy this, buy this, but that doesn't
Hmm.
work. When I say sales, the people who know the art of selling. The art of
Right.
selling is to not sell at all.
Hmm.
And
True. Right.
so there's, of course, there are a lot of processes in that.
Welcome to the latest and the newest episode of the In Your 20s podcast, where you become smarter by listening to the smartest people in their 20s. In this episode, we talked about how the Southeast Asia startup ecosystem is different from India's. What are some of the common traits of the most successful startup founders? How to actually sell anything, even when you are an introvert. Things you can learn from Bhagwat Gita. And what are the 20-year-old mindset? And much more deeper conversations. For today's exciting episode, we have Shagun Karki, founder of makeraves, a PR agency, and previously worked at E27 as a tech journalist. She has also worked and interviewed multiple startup founders both in India and Southeast Asia, with a strong interest in Web3 ecosystem specifically. A quick hint, stick towards at the end of the episode, much better, but because you'll find much more curious and interesting conversations out there. So please consider subscribing. So the episode with Shagun Karki begins in 3, 2, 1. Hi, hi Shagundi. Thank you so much for joining in. Really excited to host you, and just deep, dive deeper into your experience and journey overall.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to, kind of go proceed with our conversations. Yeah.
Absolutely cool. So to begin with our conversation, I would like to um, move towards start with the first instance that I had with you. It was, I think, a Web3 college event that happened in our college, and I see you as just being the moderator and like handling and managing the overall conversation between different speakers, and also on top of that adding your perspective, your point of view in particular subjects, right, of your interest. And that that was kind of interesting to me at first, because until then I did not see much of any women who are really inclined towards what Web3 has to offer overall. And on top of that, I found you as like a Nepali who is doing cool things and venturing into something new, which most of the people currently fear to just take that as a career path. But I want to, and I'm sure this journey wasn't very easy. So I would like to go deeper and want to know about how this entire journey came all about. Um, if you could please take us to the timeline of how it was and how it is now.
Yeah, sure. I think, by being a journalist, so I used to be an expert journalist, covering tech mostly in Southeast Asia. And it was like inborn trait that journalists should have. That curiosity was always like, it's always been there with me. So, I was always trying to like
The
uncover like interesting things happening in the tech space, always chasing around for stories and all of that. Um, and then at that time when I was in Singapore, right, it was Web3 was very new, like Bitcoin was very new. It was like the early, the earliest stage of Web3 in general. Now it's like now still now people it's early, like some a lot of people say it's early because mass adoption has not still come in, but even then it was like 2011 2012. So yeah, my I decided to attend these events around cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and I think like my interest perked up from there because I could see a bunch of these very enthusiastic founders who were like talking about revolutionizing the finance completely of the entire financial system. And that caught my attention. And of course, they're saying, imagine a world without banks. And suddenly I was like, what's new that's upcoming? So I decided to like dig a bit deeper, deeper, deeper. I kind of got drawn into the innovation, the concept of Web3. So slowly I started covering Web3 stories and then decided to transition into PR. Because as a journalist, you only cover news, but as a PR, as a public relations, someone who's working at public relations for a tech company, you create news. Like you need to give journalists really good meat. And right at that time, there was a lot of negativity also surrounding the space. You said that it wasn't an easy journey. I mean, Web3 because still invites a lot of like skepticism. So to sell those kind of innovations to people, to journalists, and that was a big challenge. So that's how I kind of moved into the whole PR area, and I started like working with Yap Global, where I learned, I worked with a lot of great projects. I worked with Linear Finance, Polygon Hermes, so all these like really good companies. And after that, I started taking up projects, and then slowly that led to me starting my PR agency for emerging tech with a lot of Web3 companies. So yeah, that's all in a nutshell, like how I kind of transitioned into that space.
right, it's amazing. Um, like being a journalist, it's kind of an obvious path to just transition into when you are covering startup stories, and then you slowly move on to what the current trend is, which was Web3. But one really interesting thing I find about you is you are always doing something cool, especially working with cool projects in Web3. That is something really interesting. But I would like to double click on the fact of you being the journalist part, right? Let's start from how this actual instinct to become a journalist came all about. Whether it was from college or you read few articles and that excited you to dive deeper into what content is all about, and perhaps you moved into okay, how is content written, and what are the steps after that, and slowly transitioning into journalism. So how did you start off initially with journalism?
That's a great question, actually. And like you said, it goes back way back in the past. The funny story is that I was young, like everybody in my family, my relatives and my friends, they used to call me question mark because I had questions about everything.
Right, right.
So, I had very strange questions, very deep questions. So I was curious about everything. And I mean, when I was young, right, it wasn't that I wanted, like, journalism happened to me very accidentally. I never aspired to be a journalist. As you know, like, for us in our 20s, it's like you never know what you want to do. Like right now,
Absolutely.
I'm
Right.
a journalist. Tomorrow, yeah, after 10 years, I say I want to be an entrepreneur. After those, because for me, it's not been very smooth. Like I was never those kind of people like who knows exactly what they want to do, which I find them very lucky. People who are born and they're like, yes, I want to be this, and they actually end up being that. That never happened to me. A few traits, that were, and then my entire process, even in college, I took psychology, and then I in my college, like when I was doing a psychology, but I gravitated towards tech events for some reason.
Right.
These things happen to you when you're in that experimental 20s stage, right?
Right.
I attended a lot of tech events, and the thing that really grabbed my attention is I was very inspired by the people that I met in these events, entrepreneurs. I really love talking to them, talking and really seeing what kind of ideas they bring to the table. And because I'm born in a very small city, right, Guwahati, like that's where majority of my childhood time has been spent. Come to Singapore and then hear about these ideas. Like people are talking about EV, people are talking about VR, AR, and then crypto, and I was just like, wow, this is very interesting.
Right.
So then, when I was still in my college, and then I really wanted to be more like there's one thing just seeing an event, and there's one thing being actively part of that event. And it's much more fun when you're actively part of these events, right? So,
Absolutely.
what can I do? I was just interning. I was like, कुछ भी दे दो मुझे, I'll do anything. So I did all kinds of like odd things, right? So I'll do I'll just I don't even know what I'm doing. They'll ask me to like make a speaker description, speaker list, all of that stuff, make me sit at the registration counter, everything they made me do. So after that, there was one aspect of this entire thing that I really loved. Coming back to my childhood trait of, having questions about everything and
Right.
being attracted and inspired by these leaders that I saw on stage. Journalism was the best route, being a technical, because it matches like it combines it. So that's how I kind of decided to go into it. And honestly, it was not like at that time also I didn't know that okay, journalism, I'll do like journalism. I just saw a job post and then I applied for it. And I happened to be a fairly good writer. So the company, they kind of took me in, and I worked as an intern. And after that, after doing a lot of work and a lot of good work, then I transitioned into um, full-time journalist.
Right. Absolutely. Like when you mentioned that uh, in since childhood you or they called you as another question mark, I could really resonate with that because even I used to be like ask very simple questions, right? Why is this happening? Why am I living? Why is this earth existing, or things like that? And my parents used to like feel very weird about me, but overall hindsight, I feel that it was all this curiosity to just, wanting to know more and exploring what actually is there. And alongside, when you mentioned that college events has been a major part of what the career that you have currently, even as of now, even I'm into this college events and stuff, and I find these events really exciting, not just for the sake that it gives you more of or we can say it keeps you away from studies, but it is more of knowing and connecting with people, and also good experience that you have, especially when it comes to getting sponsors for the event, talking to the guests, and all sorts of that, right? um, let's move on to the next phase you had, right? The full-time job at E27. And I think before you had interned there, and then you moved on to having a full-time role, right? So how is that overall? Because I think it was again a physical, you had to be physically there, working in Singapore. So how's that experience
Yes, that's right.
overall, um, being a journalist, especially in a company like E27, who is more into again startups and the ecosystem in Southeast Asia? So how is that all about?
It was actually, it was a really great experience, and I got to fulfill like everything that I wanted to do during that time. It was such an exciting thing for me. I was able to travel. So one fun fact is that I never really completed like full course. I got an offer and I jumped ship. I was like, I'll do this. Um, I mean, that's one risk that I took, but that's not a decision that I ever regretted. It gave me it gave me a lot of freedom. Like I was free to do what I love, and I was also the travel was also something that I really enjoyed doing. And I was like sit in class, learn theoretical stuff, or work, earn money, and travel. I was like, okay, let's go down that. So I did that, and it was very great for me, and I built so many great networks within the startup community in Southeast Asia and India, which having a good network always helps you in the
Right.
future. So I kind of built that foundation for myself, which helps me a lot. Right when I look back, that network has really given me the credibility so that I can move forward in whatever I'm doing right now. And I had really great people that I worked with. And the founder of E20s, Mohan, super supportive. He gives people a chance to explore new directions. And I like companies like that. I've always been a more startup kind of personality than a more corporate kind of personality, because you get that freedom to kind of um, take on new projects and really prove yourself in the company.
Right.
And yeah, they really it was a very inclusive company. I felt at home, and yeah, it was one of the best experience, best companies that I worked with.
Great. I happened to just scroll through the first LinkedIn post that you had done. Um, I forgot the date, but I remember it was related to you meeting a founder. She was a women founder, and she had a kid like brought into the interview, and I think it was in a cafe or a restaurant or something. And then you had mentioned about what great experience you had and how chill she was for taking for giving the interview. And I'm sure you had tons and tons of founder interview experiences while you were working with E27. Um, I would like to know that if you have to, if I have to ask you that, what are some three qualities that you find common between all of the founders that you have interviewed or you have contacted with? So what would the three things be?
So that's a really question, and obviously I have a very different answer for this, which might not be, you know, might not be accepted by people as well. It's a very what I feel, during my process of interviewing these founders is that you can never know. You can never pinpoint at that moment his qualities because I mean every founder has a unique quality which is great, and they have a unique aura to themselves, but it's very hard to really know that person in that window, 45 to 60-minute window. No matter how much I tried to dig in, my curiosity was never satiated. I was like, this cannot be enough, because at the end of the day, every founder, because I work in PR as well, they go through lots of media training before they come. So,
Right.
and before you go to the media, you're always on guard. You're always on guard, and you have to show your best face out. So, as a journalist, I mean, yes, there are few things that I think are important qualities for founders to have, but you never know, you never know unless you really talk to a person in not a very constrained situation, like they knew I was interested. So they're always, on guard. Of course, with the like I said, few characteristic traits will be. But I can answer that question for you. Founders that I know very closely as friends now, that is very different from, I think, the question that you asked, like interview wise, honestly, I uncovered nothing, Aditya. Like, one, I meet them today, something else, but when I get to know them, it's a completely different story. So
Right.
you never know who a person is. And especially when you're a seasoner, like you're of a big company, like I interviewed Revolut, Nas Daily. They know that I'm going to write something tomorrow, so they'll always be on guard. You never know. Outside of that, I think a few of the qualities that founders that I've seen that are very successful, they have. Everybody has great ideas, and the ability to actually execute it, I think, is a quality that that is important to. And I what I've seen is successful entrepreneurs have the ability to execute. Everybody has great ideas. I have a great idea and agency, but until I'm able to execute it, it's not possible. Second, sales. As a founder, sales is a very important quality to have. This is what I realized um, in my journey, as and great founders, they know how to sell, and that's the thing. That's the key, right? The,
Right.
so I think if a founder should have even just one quality, I think that is sales, because you can sell something that nobody interested into something that people want and need. So I think, yeah, if I had to pinpoint, those would be it.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, when you mention about sales and execution, I really feel that they are actually the what do we call, the base of the building that you create as a startup, right? And without execution, nothing is possible. And this is what the most of the people are, in this loop of, whether they should execute or not. They are into the ideation thing and stuff. And also the sales part, I remember, I think you might have heard this, but they say that from a customer's point of view, no one likes to be sold. and the best seller is the one who sells something to someone without they knowing that they want that thing. So right from, especially this thing comes into play when we talk about consumer brands and stuff, but overall I do believe, yeah, selling is an essential part. Even if you are not a founder, you're always selling something, right? We are selling our idea of, you know, a Goa trip to our parents, and they letting us to go, or even our teacher to just, you know, increase our marks in our exams. It all comes down to selling, right? um, if I have to ask you that,
Yeah,
right,
one thing
yeah, yes, yes.
sorry, before the next question, I just want to share one thought that I got. It's ironic that the best salespeople are, if you don't try to sell too much, you sell. That's the art of sales. I mean, when I think of sales, right? When I'm saying that sales is an important quality to have, um, there are people who like hard sales, buy this, buy this, buy this, but that doesn't work. When I say sales, the people who know the art of selling. The art of
Right.
selling is to not sell at all. And
True. Right.
so there's, of course, there are a lot of processes in that. But yeah, that I kind of like meant with like sales, but yeah, I just wanted to, yeah.
Right, right. um as, so if you're talking about selling, if I have to ask you that, um if there is a normal, like, college student and wants to, you know, ex- know about how to sell, then what are some ways that student can learn about selling, as everyone mentioned? Because this is something which I've found is that every entrepreneur is saying that, you know, you have to be a seller, you have to be a salesman, you have to sell something and stuff, but a very few of them, or a fraction of them, are just talking about, you know, how exactly to sell something. And that was and a very basic one is, like, what I've heard is, you know, just go to a shop, say them that you will help them to sell their product, take that product, go to door, and just talk with the people and try to, like, um, know and try to figure out how to sell them that product. So what, according to you, would be the ways to, you know, just learn about what selling exactly is?
That's a great question, honestly, and I had that question as well. I mean, we're all in a learning stage. I'm still learning, but I've gotten better at it as with time. But I'm also the believer that there is no one size fits all solution to this. What I've noticed with myself is that I'm an introvert by nature. So I kind of have to come out as an extrovert sometimes. But
Right.
generally I am mostly, I'm at my best when I'm alone or like surrounded by very limited people. So there is also a narrative around that, if you're an introvert, it's very hard to become a
Right.
good salesman. And also, I feel like I'm not trying to be biased or something, but generally I feel like what I've observed within my limited circle, there is a trend of Nepali people being a little bit introverted or shy, and not just Nepali people. Like when I was in Japan, also, I saw a lot of Europeans who were like, oh, Japanese people are shy, so they're not approaching us, and they only attend. Asian people in general, I feel, are little reserved. So, as an introvert, right? Like I feel like when you say like how to get better at sales, I think really the thing is like to know yourself first, like understand. observe observing yourself and also observing others. So as an introvert, what I noticed is like I don't do well with selling in events, like where there are large gatherings. So I use what I'm best at. I'm very good at one-on-one interactions. So I kind of DM people separately, and and I ask them to meet, one-on-one to build a warm connection. Because I feel like, once you have a warm connection, then, like I said, sell sometimes is to not sell. So I don't go with a mindset, oh, I have to sell this person something. The mindset is always to build a connection first and then
Right.
see where it takes us. I use the strengths that I have. Like personally, like I said, I'm not an extrovert, so I do more one kind of pitches, which I've worked. The other thing is, I also really like what Kunal Shah said. The best, there was a reporter who asked him like, "What's your favorite MBA school?" And he was like, "YouTube." The reason why he said that is because
Right.
everything is there on YouTube.
Hmm.
One can utilize a lot of there are a lot of free courses. Coursera has a lot of free courses. You can get spending like 1,000. LinkedIn Learning is also really good. Spending like 1 or 2,000 rupees just to understand the other side's perspective. Because as a college student, you don't have a lot of credibility to go around, people. So
Right.
just slowly understanding, and not you know it's also it's there's a lot of things. It's very hard to pinpoint like 1 or 2 things. But what I'm a firm believer of working on our personal strengths. If I'm an
Right.
extrovert, I will use extrovert methods to go for sales. But if I'm an introvert, I need to change my strategy. I
Mm-hmm.
need to know
Right.
myself. I need to know my strengths. I need to understand what the other person thinks. And sales is also about. It's not about me. It's about you. I need to know what you want, and only
True.
then I can come to you. You know. So knowing these basic concepts, and then again, it's just a process. Trial. You try different things. You fail. Again, you try. But just knowing the pace components. It's about the other person. It's not about you. What does the other how does the other person think, what does he need, is it timely, all of this. Even when we do and selling is not only selling products, right? It's like you said it as well, like selling mattress, or you in PR, in my industry, selling a story, crime story to the journalist. It's all
True.
sales. But it really so having that journalist background is also because I know how journalists think. So
Mm-hmm.
it's easier for me to sell them stories. So you really need to put yourself in the other person's shoes and understand what he wants. At the same time, have a good understanding of yourself as well. So observing, knowing that it's about what people want, and exploring like a lot of online resources. So these three things, I think.
Absolutely right. Um, I'm not sure if there can be a better answer to the question that I asked. Um, Absolutely understood. True. I did not think from that perspective of that, introvert and extrovert. But right, great POV. Um, let's
Yeah,
talk about, yeah.
I read a I read, sorry
Continue,
to, but
continue. You
I
you
read
can.
a book
It's okay. It's
ago,
okay.
and it's called Quiet.
Right.
I was saying that I a few months ago read this book. It's called Quiet, and it's about introverts. How introverts people, entrepreneurs can survive. And I realized after so can you imagine, like now I'm understanding more about myself after this
Mm-hmm.
entire. So that's the thing, right? You never know. It continues to change. So now and after that, I read that book. I got a really good perspective as well. Now that you're hearing from me, I got it from that book. That it's a different process at all, and one must utilize their strengths. Um, I'm a believer in that. Some people will take up courses to try to be more extroverted, and that works for them. But I have a different approach. I always believe in playing in my strength.
True. True. Um, Right. So coming back to the the interview of the founder interview experiences, if I have to ask you that, tell us about one or maybe two such founder experiences, interview experiences that you had, which you really admire, and what is the reason that you admire about that?
That's and all of the founder interviews are honestly very unique in their own way. I have a tendency to be drawn most more, founders. There are a lot of founders, different personalities. I that I'm drawn to are very, very um, like they're very real. A lot of the times in the interviews, I try to hide my kind of what I feel like it's an unpopular opinion, so I'll try to like shut up. And that way, I think Nas Daily was one of was a really good interview because that guy he's at a level where he doesn't, he's at a level where he needs PR to be very honest because the personality, right? You need
Right.
PR, somebody who is going to tell you like, oh, like, yeah, bolna, don't say this, don't say that. But
Right.
that guy was very raw and very real, very honest. And even his demeanor, like I could tell he was very different. Um, People are generally more reserved, they sit. But that guy, he's very. When you see him on his videos, he's also like that in reels,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a
Right.
very very real. Are very real about the experience. A lot of the founders don't even share their failures. That's what I've realized. It's a trend.
Mm.
They don't want to talk about their failures, and I like it. I appreciate it if people are more vulnerable, if they're more real about the experiences. So these all my interviews that have been very real have been actually really really good ones.
True. um how was this Nas Daily interviewing type of thing came all about? I would like to know that.
It's a very again, it's so he was. I think at that time they were raising funding or they were launching something. So they sent us announcements to our newsroom, and I was picked to kind of cover that. And then I thought it's a great opportunity to also ask for an interview. And so yeah, I I asked him for an interview, but the funny story is that Nas he got into a lot of trouble in Southeast Asia. There was some, I think I forgot now, some kind of very big something that he said that the media took it the wrong way. So there are a lot of bad articles flowing about it. Which when that happened, I kind of understood that he's so real that he might say something like that, and that might
Right.
create some kind of controversy. So I wasn't surprised when that happened. That's what I was telling you about. That's why I can never. That's how my experience as a journalist was very hard for me to kind of get to the core of that person. Find that window because he's prepared and everybody's on guard. So that's why I do want a very real personality. But he kept it real, so unfortunately he got into a bit of trouble. But he has such a great following, and the work that he does is so amazing that these minor things people might not even like look at. Like you didn't even know about it. A lot of people don't know about it. So at the end of the day, this was nice.
True. Agree. Hmm. Like, yeah, even if when we just watch his videos, the first thing that you can get from is how open he is. Like the way he speaks, it's you can easily figure out that he's a very open-minded person, and just talking about what is in his heart, rather than just sugarcoating and not talking about most of the things.
Exactly.
True. So while we are discussing about just interviewing founders, why don't we go behind the scenes and try to know that how exactly this entire meeting is set up, whether I think most of the times you as the journalist, you approach them and they fix a date or something. But apart from that, what are the behind the scene things that goes into having a founder being interviewed?
That's a great question, and honestly, I wish I had started a podcast that would ask this question because until my PR career, I never knew what goes behind the scenes. So behind the scenes, what happens is one way is that I approach someone for an interview. The other way is that they have a PR team that kind of gives me really good story or like give me a really good profile, and they get me interested in that profile, and then they tell me set up a call. So what goes behind the scenes is a lot of media training, man, to be honest. Um, now, yeah, media, what do you say, like media training is something that we do on how do you face the camera. So, all these personalities that you see, Shah Rukh Khan, and they're so like politically correct. Also, just, some sometimes इसका दिन खराब है कुछ निकल गया मुंह से. Other than that, everybody goes through so much rigorous media training where potential questions are given already to the speaker. We are all experts, like we know what kind of questions they'll ask you, how they'll to like get gain more information for you. So that entire media training process happens, and then they face the camera, so they're completely prepared. Um, that's why these everything that we see on the camera for the normal person, it's like wow, matlab, really great thoughts or something.
Hmm.
They have some kitna, matlab, and then you behind the camera, it's a different story for some, not
Right.
for all. Okay,
Right.
like there are a lot of people who are genuinely rude in front and behind, and those are the people that I have connected with personally, right? And yeah, so that's a lot of media trainings for your question. What happens behind the scenes? Yeah.
Mm, yep, I can think of it because like when media is involved, there's definitely so much processes, and then you and when cameras are involved in the same thing, then it goes whole into another level because you have to be self-conscious of what you will be talking about and trying not to whatever you speak that is not backfiring you in some way. um,
Exactly. Yeah.
yep. um, and again, I'm sure that again, as you mentioned, that you had a great experience working at E27. um, but I wanted to know that mm, what apart from just writing about stories or writing about startup um, is all about in a company, in a media company like E27? What are some other things that as a journalist you do apart from just writing content?
Writing content is a small part of it. A lot of it is also like uncovering stories. You go to events, you dig, you talk to a lot of founders, you meet a lot of founders. Um, in E27, since it had a little bit of a startup culture, we also hosted like webinar series. Uh, all that process is there. So writing content is a small part of it. A lot of it is trying to find out what is really interesting, what is trending, what are people talking about, what people want to know, what founders want to know. um,
Mm-hmm.
and that entire process, a lot of research. It's a lot of like going for events, and also on social media. You also write on social media. That's like a different style of writing. Um, so all in all, it's that. And the thing about, like I said, when you work in a startup or you have a company that has startup culture, you have your hands on everything, right? So a little bit of marketing, a little bit of sales, everything. So you kind of get to like touch all of
Hmm.
the.
True. Okay. So, right, the final question I would like to ask related to journalism would be, um, if there's a college student thinking to venture into this whole journalism thing, what are the skills that are required to, get into the role, and what are the skills that he or she needs to, keep building, keep learning, and keep um, knowing, so that he or she sustains in that role for a longer period of time.
That's a really good question, and I think that one of the things that before you um, before you decide like journalism, you need to decide like which beat do you want to cover. So there are like different beats, right? There's tech beat. Are you interested in tech? Are you interested in political type of stories? Are you interested in let's say more non-profitable kind of social? Rest of world does a really great job with that. So you first need to identify which field is something that you're most interested in. For me, it was tech. So and then after that, you I think then you go and you apply. And I think the skills basically is just you need to have good research abilities. You need to be a good writer. Uh, you need to be curious. That these are like all innate skills that one must have. And I think that if you're really serious about journalism, right, you should start writing from the beginning. Like even if it's like if you want to submit like an opinion article, if you have an interesting take, like in E27, there were a lot of college students who used to talk about being a aspiring to be a founder at a young age, or some trend that they are seeing in the region, some tech trends, and then they used to contribute. So try to like find places that you can contribute in. Doesn't have to be just news publication. It can also be like your own LinkedIn, or it can be your own social media, page where you like share these kind of things. So doing these things will like give you that portfolio. When you go, you have something tangible to show, and it also gives you that credibility. And then once you are in, once they have secured a spot as a journalist, then I think that one of the most important factors that I think, not one of the most, there are a couple of important ones, but I think it's also very, as a journalist, you need to find really interesting stories. So we call it scoops. So scoops is when you know something that nobody else is knowing. So that also comes with building relationships in your, let's say, your industry. Uh,
Right.
Being in places like, let's say, if you're interested in like economist, the kind of writing that Economist Times does, being, let's say, some leader comes talks about Web3, like there's a G20 summit happening, and
Yep.
you be there. You need to be there. You need to be the first one to write the news, and you need to be the first one to send it. So I think after that, it's just a process. You need to have really good research abilities, very good talking skills. Sometimes you need to ask questions that can uncover things that you might not otherwise see. So all these things will come as, and then when you create such unique stories, automatically your career takes a boost. Like you get a really good story, you do really good research work. Um, like Coindesk in Web3, they do a lot of digging in the financials. They'll see,
Right.
and then they'll write a story about it. So it's a lot of research abilities and all of that combined.
True. um like, I would like to share my experience. I don't know, uh before that, one last question related to journalism is, how is content writers different from journalists?
That's a good question. Um, Content writers again is the umbrella. There's every different writing for every different medium is different. Content
Right.
writing for Instagram is different. Content writing for Facebook is different. Content writing for LinkedIn is different, and then content writing for a publication is different. Um,
Right.
so it's different. Journalism is more just digging stories and taking out stories that matter to people. Like, let's say you're a tech journalist, you need to write about tech trends, you need to talk to VCs, and you need to uncover what are they betting on the next year. um, and when you're writing, let's say it's the same trends you're writing for in LinkedIn, you need to write from your own observe, or like you need to observe it on your own. Like, oh, I
Right.
see this. Of course, ample of resources available on both sides. But as a journalist, you get added, like, you can talk to people, like you can go to a VC and you can directly ask them. Like, nobody's going to stop you. You have that freedom. You can talk to anyone you want,
Yes.
and use
Right.
all that information at the end to craft your entire piece. And then I think generally, when you write as a journalist, you need to make sure that you're not biased. It's not about propaganda. I think there's a lot of ethics, and sometimes journalists do it. They put a lot of bias in it. But I think as a journalist, you're supposed to write everything uh, without removing that bias. And when you do content writing, it's a lot of like your own ideas, opinions you put into the writing. But
Right.
again, there's also a different branch called opinion pieces. Like I said, when you contribute, when you want to share your perspective. Again, these are like, as a journalist, the only thing is that you shouldn't be too biased.
True. True. Cool.
Yeah,
I'd like to zoom out from all of this journalism thing and move towards your learnings, your insights from the startup ecosystem. So you being in Singapore and interviewing with a lot of founders, you have been into that, that core of Southeast Asia's startup ecosystem, right? And apart from that, you had definitely moved into Bangalore, Delhi, and found connected with more founders. So, if I have to ask you that, what are some things that you found that the Southeast Asia startup ecosystem is different from the Indian ecosystem, right? And yeah, any insight about these two ecosystems altogether?
that's a really great question. Something I think about a lot as well. And one of the things I realized about India is that Southeast Asia trends there is like, um, it's an overall thing. Like, one thing happens, it will affect Southeast Asia as a whole. But
Right.
India is so fragmented, right? Delhi trends is different from Jaipur trends, is different from Northeast trends, is different from South trends.
Right.
So navigating India is a little bit more challenging because it's very regional. It's more hyper local than hyper local. It's very very local.
True.
Um, so let's say in Southeast Asia, um, let's say grab or whatever the 70% tumble that the stock has faced is going to affect Southeast Asia as a whole. But in India is very different. And also the VC scene in India, I feel, is I feel one of the things that I really hope changes in India is Southeast Asia is very easy for you to knock on someone's door and you'll get an answer. It's very easy. So you can actually even connect with the founder of Grab, which is supposed to be a really big deal. You can connect with. It's very easy. They're very accessible. In India, is not the case. In India, of course, culturally also, um, power pockets are very different. Power plays are different. Power dynamics are different in India compared to Southeast Asia. Singapore, it's a very, very at the hub of Southeast Asia is one of the major cities is Singapore, and like I said, it's very very accessible. A lot of events happen. So the thing in India, right, in Northeast, you don't have access to these things. How you want to talk?
Hmm.
You don't have access to these events. You don't have a lot of founder meetups. For that to actually happen, you have to travel to Bangalore. You have to travel to Delhi, and
Right.
then it will happen. You know, in Southeast Asia as a whole, if you look at it, Singapore has equally as many events as Malaysia, as many events as KL, and then Thailand, equal level of activities happening in all the pockets. Whereas in India, it's still fragmented and the reach is not easy. Like it's very hard for me to meet face to face because we see. Um, being in Northeast, then and in India it was very very sorry not in Singapore it was very very easy. So these are the differences that I noticed, and also a lot of things I think the market trends in Singapore in India I think there's more potential in very very uh, how do I say like very very base layer areas like let's say basic things like how do you solve the problems of transportation or how do
Right.
you solve the problem of e-commerce even in northeast itself is like a entire problem. E-commerce in northeast is like another thing, whereas in Singapore it's more advanced like climate tech is happening, EV is happening, India also it's happening but comparatively it's a little bit slower, and companies are more like VCs are more like invested towards those kind of industries. Whereas it's but now I think that market is also changing. When I was there at that time, it was like that. But now again, things are changing. Everybody's getting equally affected with the bear market because of the war. There's that many things are happening, right? Um, but if I had to pinpoint two things, India is very, very regional things happen in different areas, whereas in Southeast Asia, activity is more buzzing in a consistent way. And the other thing, like I said, accessibility, right? In India, you will might not be able to access Sequoia Capital, Kafao, like cheaper. But in Southeast Asia, I think like in Singapore specifically, it's very very easy. They keep like it's very easy to access them. So that difference I see.
True. Like when you mentioned that India is very local, Sebi, it is more hyper local, right? I think I've heard somewhere that in India there is this. So if you think from the perspective that there is so much competition, because in every region there is a startup coming up, and they are solving for the same problem, and there is a competition thing also. But if we think from the perspective that the opportunity wise, that how much of opportunity we can get, especially, and one of the thing that the speaker mentioned was that in India there is a possibility that you can build at least $1 million business just from a small city in India, just solving a problem. And from every city you can just build on that. You just have to find a problem to solve for that. And apart from the thing about accessibility, I think in India, um, the VCs are there are not much of young VCs. I feel like much of them are like, um, how do we say, older type of, like in their 40s or 50s, and then so they are much more into, you know um, it's difficult to access them. But then when we talk about, yeah,
Um, yeah, I can't comment on that because like I don't have any data that supports that fact.
right,
So might not be able to exactly pinpoint the reason. I think there are a lot of VCs in general are generally people who made enough money that now they can invest
Hmm.
in.
True.
But I think it's I see a lot of inner circles in India, whereas in Southeast Asia, that's of course inner circle will always be there, but that mindset of anyone can approach me is more. I'm not saying that's not there, but there I tend to find it more.
Yep. And I think much of Southeast Asia are more acceptable to new technologies and experiencing and learning from that.
Um,
And but
again,
like,
it's the market. They are far more
right.
advanced in terms of
Hmm.
transportation. These are not problems
Right.
that they have to solve.
Yep.
Like, I mean, again, in Southeast Asia, I'm not saying this is for all the countries. For certain countries, like Singapore, there's no problem with transportation. So these are not problems that they will be solving. They're solving like higher problems, like electric EVs, cars, climate tech. All of these solutions will come out. In
True.
India, that's not the case. Every roads are different everywhere. Suddenly there are mountains.
Hmm.
Suddenly there's beach. So it's very different.
True. And one of the funny, I don't know if it's actually funny, but while Tesla was announcing to come to India, many people were saying, "There's so much guy and all. How
Yeah,
will
yeah,
you like objectify it?" And that's
yeah,
a different thing.
exactly.
And I think there's an opportunity there also when we talk about this thing, because there can be more entrepreneurs coming up and saying, hey, we know how Indian roads are, and we know there is a technology like self-driving, and why not we can
Yeah,
fix this issue rather than another American company coming to India and solving for that. That's a great thing.
absolutely.
um right. If what are some I think in India there is much of right now that fintech and edtech thing, but when we talk about Southeast Asia, what are some markets that are growing or booming right now?
Um, to be very honest with you, I think next year might not be so great for Southeast Asian stuff. So Southeast Asian market. In terms of trends, again, it depends from region to region. Fintech, of course, will always be in Malaysia, in all these places like Thailand and all. So there's no I cannot pinpoint into like one or two trends because every region will be different, the market will be different. But overall, from what I'm hearing like now, with the Grab thing coming up and all these tech stocks hitting low,
Right.
next year might not be great in my perspective for Southeast Asia. But overall, that's the major trend that I can see happening. In terms of what kind of tech companies might be dealing with AI generative AI, it's still like right now it's slowing down a little bit. But yeah, these are all changing. It keeps changing.
Great. Cool. um let's transition this conversation towards your this opening door towards web3, and again which was led to by journalism. um what what was that thing which inspired you, or made you interested more about web3 in general?
I think I told you right when I was in that event, where the first time I went for that crypto event, and some young entrepreneur was telling, "Imagine there's a world of banks." That line
Mm-hmm.
itself was,
Right.
was inspiring enough for me to delve into like, क्या है ये चीज, like. It's if you think about it, it's very the crazy idea, right? Like now, we because as a global agency, we do a lot of transactions. We hire people who are not from India, and money exchange. Where like so much money goes.
Right.
There's so much Jamila. But that problem, once I was in the Web3 space, when we did an event in Japan, we did transactions via crypto. And it just happened in like 5 seconds and near to nil, like the transaction fees was like so low. So I was like, man, this is a much better. And now I think in Singapore as well, token 2049, a lot of companies are coming who were, where you could book like flights and hotels over crypto. There's again, there's downsides to everything because very recently I was talking to a potential, like, to a company, and they were saying that very recently somebody 4 crores amount worth of crypto was kind of hacked from someone's wallet in Mumbai, and a few minutes later they tracked it, like somebody in Hamas. That money got transferred to someone in Hamas.
Okay.
So you can imagine there are also like
Hmm.
downsides to this that I'm saying, which
Right.
was shocking for me. Like, how wow, like, so there are a lot of companies who are coming to solve this problem. A lot of analysis and all these security focused companies, but ups and downs to both. That overall, the technology is fascinating to be honest. Yeah.
True. Really. Hmm. Yup. Yup. Web3 is really fun actually. um, when you so you mentioned you going to Japan, right, for the DAO Tokyo.
Yeah.
So the first time when I heard that, you are going to DAO Tokyo, being a moderator, that was like so inspirational. Can't express because like you being from our community and just going to much um, better opportunities and great experiences, it's really inspiring. So why don't you take us through how was um, that experience in being a moderator, and how did you land that opportunity first of all?
As it's only been about to be a year since I've launched my agency. So we're always on the lookout for, ways to promote your brand and at the same time uh, promote your business. So this opportunity came out of, everything in Web3 happens on Telegram. So
Right.
I kind of got to know through Telegram that this event is happening, and it's happening in Japan, and it's the first time that it's happening in Asia. So I contacted the contacted the organizers, and basically, like I told you initially, it's about what they want, and try to share how important this is, how much support we can provide in terms of PR and how that will convert into sales. And that event was a paid one and it was completely booked. And at the same time, it was such a big success that the same day Pragma was also happening, they had just launched Pragma. Like ETH had just launched Pragma, and it happened the same day as DAO Tokyo, and nobody was at Pragma. And there was one experience where um, I was in the washroom and some people were talking. And thank God, they're in DAO Tokyo and they're not in Pragma, because it's such a great event, so much better. All the journalists were in DAO Tokyo, and overall it was a raging success. And Japanese people are honestly the most sweetest, kindest clients that I wish every client, like I wish all my clients were Japanese clients, to be very honest. They
Right.
are the nicest. So the moderating opportunity, I had asked for a moderating slot, but during that process, again, it's all about um, building that connection and just building bonds with people. And our bond was so nice, that we both, like, it was reciprocated, right? We both did so much for each other that they gave me the opportunity of moderating that slot that happened to be one of the most important talks that everybody came to see because all the major companies like FireEyes, Lens Protocol, everybody was there in that panel. Um, and I didn't ask for it, like it was just given to me. So I
Right.
think that, and it was a really great experience. It was, I went to it, I went like, going over it thinking that it's not a big deal, I just went like, I think it's like any other moderating session. I didn't know that it was such a big deal for people, but then some people started texting me, they're like, oh my god, you're on this opening panel. I was like, I was like, ah, like, ठीक है, like, so I was like a little bit. And one more thing, the entire setup of that panel was dim. It was dark. You can't see the people
Mm,
around you, and you
right.
sit in a way where you only face each other. So it was very comforting for me because, being an introvert, I kind of prefer to, like I said, one-on-one connections and more intimate settings. And it was just that. And this was also not planned. I didn't know it was going to be like this. So things kind of like played in like I was lucky that time, and it kind of like it went smoothly.
Absolutely. But suppose if there's someone who is actively taking part into or in events, especially in Web3, and is searching for these kinds of opportunities, then can they expect to have the same opportunity that you would get, like when we talk about DAO Tokyo, like that?
Um, I think like in Web3, it's a very very fresh industry, and it's not like intense events or like sustainable events like conferences where you really have to have like something to Web3 in overall is just very fresh. All you need to do is just connect with people, connect with people, see what people want, observe what people want, and share what you can offer. Like in training, I always tell this, I get a lot like when my friends or like, my brothers, sisters, little ones like who are, younger than me, they're just graduating or they're in school and they're, interested in all of this. I always, and they take question me like, how much should I expect, like, salary wise? I was like, initially, that's not even a question. You should not think about that. Think about
Right.
how you can help that other person because you're not in a position. You are only in that position once you have like 4 or 5 years of experience in that space and you're more seasoned. Then,
Right.
not 4 5 jada bol diya, but like for me, it's that much. Um, but first you need to think when you're fresh. You need to think how you can be of help to them, and be ready. To do anything. Like कुछ भी कर लेंगे बस. I want. I want to. You need to like this should be added to my portfolio. So that kind of and remote opportunities are there. If you have the hunger and if you have that really that drive, I think you are able to manifest anything. It's really, do you really want it? It's a question of, do you really want it, or
True.
do you just want it because it looks nice from the outside, or do you really want that thing? So it's just a matter of that. And then if you really do, you find ways to do it.
Yep. Hmm. That is bang on actually, especially when nowadays the youngsters are much more influenced by what the influencers are telling them or showing them about their life. So and the Gen Z especially are just into how to get this life of what the
Yeah, yeah,
influencer
yeah,
are, and not focusing on what actually is that thing to do or what they are doing or what they really like
yes,
to do.
exactly.
um Great thing. I would like to
And
again. Yeah, 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 go for it.
no, I just, I wanted to add to that point because that's a very important factor, I think, and it should be conveyed to, to your audience because you're catering more to the 20s audience.
Right.
So I also, I'm a big believer. Like I read a lot of like these spiritual books, and recently I read the Bhagwat Gita, and my entire perception has kind of like changed from perception has changed in terms of initially, there's a trend, cloud chasing, like you said. You see all
Hmm.
these like flashy, you're moderating up, wow, there's noise surrounding, he's doing this, that, he's shaking hands with Vitalik, and you're like,
Hmm.
I want to do that, I want to become an influencer, I want to become like, this, that.
Right.
But they're not like really looking at themselves and really understand asking themselves like, what do I really want and who am I, like, do you understand your strengths enough? One thing I read, that the reason I told you about the spiritual books is very recently, I really like this one thing that I read in Bhagavad Gita, which is, it's, you must inherently innately know what you want to do, and you should only
Hmm.
do that. You should not see others and like, do what they are trying to do, and that's a major mistake I've also made in my life, trying to
Right.
copy others. It
Hmm.
never works, never. And you must always like, be true to your own nature and do the things that you genuinely want to do and not because someone else is doing it. I think this message should be conveyed to a lot of people in the 20s, that what Krishna has said this. So I think, for
Hmm.
me, like I follow um, these things are one of the reasons why I also like Bhagavad Gita, is because it's very practical. It's not
Hmm.
it's not like, oh yeah, you become a Vairagi, you go and like, you renounce everything. It's very, very practical. It's about how you lead life, how you, because at the end of the day, Krishna was a very great he was a, he's a mastermind. He's a, basically controlled
Hmm.
everything. Between
Right.
his kings, he was a kingmaker. He was playing everyone. So
Hmm.
he has he knows, he understands how like people in material life live. And I think,
True.
that was when I read that, I was like, shit, yes, sahi baat bola. I wish I would have read this when I was trying to copy other people and trying to do other things. uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, this really hit me.
Absolutely. Like.
And Aditya, like one thing I want to add is like right now, right, what I've noticed is you whoever is real and authentic and present themselves as they are
Hmm.
receive much more. Uh, they are the ones who kind of receive more, like they catch people's attention. Like
Right.
when you try to become like someone else,
Hmm.
you lose that. You lose yourself in the process, and at the same time, you also um, people don't want to hear what everyone's talking about. Like you said, your anime thing got featured in the blog. Why did it
Right.
get featured? Because you are passionate about it, you have an opinion about it, and that's unique and that's yours, and that's
Hmm.
what people want to do. People don't want to know the generic anime stuff. Like if let's say I'm in a surrounding where all my friends are like listening to K-pop, but I don't really care about K-pop. uh, so my ideas about that industry will be very generic. हाँ सब बोल रहे cool है तो cool है, like
Hmm.
और कुछ है नहीं मतलब बोलने को,
Right.
but the minute that I genuinely become invested in K-pop, I identify like things that make this culture so unique, and I share that
Hmm.
with others. That makes me interesting, and that's what draws people. So
True.
it's all about like, and I think like it just all comes with experimentation, right? It's not
Hmm.
saying that you never know, like, but I'm saying like try things because you want to try, not because you're seeing somebody else do it.
Absolutely. True. Hmm. I think
Yeah.
a lot of the viewers will also get this thing because now I'm hitting towards 20s and it feels way lot different from what I had, the mindset I had in my teenage thing. Because um, I know we are like drifting apart from the topic, but in my teenage I was very optimistic, very thinking that ye bhi kar lenge, wo bhi kar lenge, I will do this, that. But then as soon as I am approaching to 20s, I feel, life is very practical and you just can't assume things that will happen. You need to work hard, you need to put that effort, and if you don't, then ultimately you will not get that thing. And to put that effort,
Absolutely.
you have to work, there is no other option. And um, to break that mediocrity barrier, then you have to work extra hard to just um, be better than others, especially in the field that you are in. Cool.
But at the end again, like I'll have to stop you there. It's not about what others. It's about yourself. Like
Hmm.
you you need to cut down the noise. Right now we live in a world where there's so much noise around, right?
Right.
Everything is happening at full pace. There's so much noise. People are doing this, people are doing that. Sometimes you hear stories, web3 stories. 18 साल का बच्चा अब करोड़पति बन गया. There's so much things happen. Like all these things
Right.
happen at massive pace. You need to like
Right.
just do this. Close your ears,
Hmm.
and then just listen to yourself. मुझे क्या करना है?
Right.
How do I become better tomorrow? Myself, not others. So I think like it's just and I understand how 20s are. जितना भी बोलने से लास्ट में तो वही है.
Hmm.
You all सब ज्ञान निकल जाता है विंडो से.
True.
And then but as much as you can, like just try to take a step back and just like कान बंद करके just listen to yourself, and then you get all the answers when in that way.
Yep. Absolutely, we'll definitely try that out. um, okay. Let's move on to the the Barcelona thing.
Barcelona.
Uh, cha-
Yeah,
so you were the manager. I think you were the manager, right?
yeah,
Related to
yeah,
PR and all.
yeah.
So how was that again experience of being a part of such a huge event, and um, definitely building new connections? So how is that all about?
It was a really great event. Like, I mean, it's I mean, overall, it was kind of the same thing that I had done for DAO Tokyo and again for ETHBarcelona when I was at the app that I did for ETHBarcelona as well. So it was, it was a great, experience. New culture again is very different. Spanish people are very different from Japanese people, very different from Americans, very different from Indians. So that cultural thing is always there, which
Hmm.
adds to the added excitement of okay, इसमें कुछ अलग होगा. Working
Right.
style is different, even organized, even team is different. But great team, great execution. I really love the mission and vision because it's very impact focused, which I am more passionate about. Like how it's not always about money, DeFi, all these industries are. It's like a money making thing, but like industries are also creating impact in Barcelona, focused on that. So I was very excited about the vision, and executing that was really great. Yeah.
Absolutely nice. Makeraves. Is it makeraves, right? It is makeraves.
Yes, it's make waves. Yes.
Firstly, why such a weird name, or it's different, very different? Why?
I think like when I think it's a little bit of wordplay there. When we say your company is making waves, like it's like taken as a compliment. Oh, your company is like everywhere. So
Hmm.
that was the kind of the idea behind, because we're a PR company. We're all about sharing the company story and like uh, getting that company more whatever business objective that they want to aspire. If it's more visibility or if it's more like lead generation, so we create waves for them. So and then it's also a little bit of make waves and make waves. So that's the kind of idea that went behind it.
Right. It's really unique also, because I don't think there's a word existing as such, but it's good for SEO.
That's
Right.
exactly why we picked it.
True, true, true. Um, the thing which I find really interesting is, um, you sort of blended your experience with journalism and PR, and then merged it with Web3, which is a very growing industry. And it's very obvious that most of the companies do need PR services. So, if you could tell us, what exactly do you do, apart from just writing about and telling stories about of companies, um, and new projects that are coming up in Web3 through makeraves.
So there's a lot of thing. There's a lot of thing. A lot of the times, communications is, taken for granted, and but people don't understand the impact that a communication strategy can have on the company. So, for example, um, a general rule of thumb is that you need to show your messaging at least 3 to 5 times. Your audience should see your core message at least 3 to 5 times for it to instill in your brain. And that's like how psychology works. So a lot of the times you see a lot of unorganized communication strategy, right?
Right.
Instagram में कुछ और हो रहा है, media like when you pitch interviews उसमें कुछ और हो रहा है, and then come like within internal में कुछ और हो रहा है. So for us, like it's really also aligning that communications so that your brand visibility, brand awareness get amplified and actually like sticks in your mind. So
Yep.
if you say the same message in 3 to 5 different ways, but the core message is the same, people tend to remember it more, and they remember you as that and they see you as that, and that's very important for brands. So we do that. So we help them with communication strategy, and again we create news for people. Like let's say, sometimes ऐसा होता है ना, like uh, one of the companies that we worked with that had partnered with a very big social icon, like sports icon in football, and right there it was we needed to create a lot of buzz, like a lot of speculative kind of articles. So
Right.
it's not just about company coming to me, or isko chapa do is newspaper mein, or like publish this. It's about how creative we can be with how we can create a buzz around what it. So creating speculative articles, in a higher scale ये बहुत होता है, you know to kind of distort stock prices.
Right.
So
Right.
PR people are also behind it. So
Okay.
as a strategic work also goes on, and again event, like you said with Barcelona, DAO Tokyo, managing events, creating good press for them, so that they can create more hype.
Cool.
um, so basically, it's creating that hype also around events. And sometimes, if we get requests, we also do investor relations. Like we have a network with a lot of VCs. We introduce startups with VCs and help to create that uh, first warm lead. So all in all, that's kind of all of the things that we do. I think like overall, this industry does need a lot of education. People don't know about PR. So to put it in very simple terms, what you see on the billboard is marketing, and what
Yes.
people talk about you or what you read on media outlets, that's PR. So
Right.
anything that's paid is PR is a lot of sources, a lot of. I think Shah Rukh Khan does PR really well. If you to like even he's always on the
Yep.
news. It creates a relevancy for you, and especially for tech companies as well. It really helps a lot because investors are more likelier to invest in companies where regular activities happening, कुछ ना कुछ आ रहा है उनके बारे में. So you're more likely to trust that okay, this company is doing. People are more likelier to trust brands that are in the news. In the Web3 space, credibility is a big thing. There's no credibility, unless you're on Coindesk, the block, or you've been vetted by these journalists, and like how do you
Right.
navigate those spaces. So yeah, there's a lot of awareness because people confuse. There's not a lot of education around marketing, PR. लोग समझते नहीं. When I was a journalist, I also didn't know what PR was. Like
Right.
who are these
Right.
random people who are pitching me, like sending their interviews. Later I realized, oh, ऐसा होता है. So it's a lot of very crucial work that they do. It really helps them. See, it even helps if it's done well. It can bring in lots of sales for you. It can create
True.
a really good positive image for you. And I think it can be, sometimes it can even be more likely and more important marketing. Like when I launched my agency, right?
Hmm.
If I done a launch where like he, matlab, I had to tell you few of my friends I'm launching something and I like launched. I mean, nobody would know about me. But
Hmm.
when I did my launch, I kind of got it published on like this. It's like a blog or a news. So from that, I got a lot of leads. जब
Right.
वो news आया ना बाहर, so it brought me leads. People like knew that, oh, I've launched something like this, and people came to me that, oh, I want this. So it really helps, you know.
Hmm. Agree. Um, so if we come back to Web3, there is a lot of this thing that people consider, even right now, most of them are skeptical about the future of Web3, and considering the FTX thing and other
Yeah.
um, things that rolled on. People are very insecure about that. And
Go on.
cool. So what is your point of view in, you know, the future of Web3 in general?
As any industry, you know, every industry has its fair list of scams, and uh, it's just that people love talking about Web3 in this light. अगर आप I talk to a lot of businesses who are solving construction issues, who are not even using tech. कितना scam होता है उनके साथ, like the
Hmm.
amount of scams that happen there in a smaller level. It's just that
Right.
Web3 is more out there, that people are like, oh, yeah, scam, that scam, that scam. But in every industry there are scams. um, One of the things that, the only thing about Web3 is that, like, this regulation thing has not been set in stone yet. And the minute that happens, it will run like normal industries. Um,
True.
so I feel like that, ये तो when people talk about this, I feel like ये तो हर industry में होता है. Every industry
Hmm.
has this. It's just that it's not being talked about. Uh, you know, even in non-tech businesses, तो ज़्यादा देखो, land India, land dalali is a big issue. कितना do you hear about it in the news? No, no, right? So
Hmm.
it's
No.
it's just how much media, it's just a narrative that's playing. It's also like it's propaganda for some people. And it's a question of narratives, what's floating in, what's floating out. um, but all in all, I think that once the regulations set in, then things will start to like become better for the whole industry. People don't understand Web3. Most people still don't understand. So governments to do kamat.
Hmm.
India is
Yes.
taking big strides. Thankfully, India is like creating some frameworks, but a lot of work has to be done. Probably in the next 2 3 years, it'll happen, or once. Yes.
True, true. I'd like to relate this whole Web3 thing as, you know, the introduction of the smartphones or even the internet. Um, People were very skeptical of how things will go forward, but then, innovation came
Exactly.
about, and people
Yeah.
started accepting it.
Yeah. In
Um,
every industry it happens. Yeah.
True, true. So right, I think we are at the end of the whole session. My last question would be, um, what's more for Shagun? What's beyond PR? And if there are one or two learnings from your experience you would like to share with the audience, that would be great.
I think like for me personally, I want to explore other industries as well. Like I already mentioned to you, I'm very passionate about sustainability impact. So I'm trying to work more now with green tech focused companies. Um, so this is something that me and my team are actively trying to push more towards. We want to work with more like climate focused, and this is an industry that we potentially think would go very big in the next few years at the rate that globalization is happening and nobody
Hmm.
cares, nobody's talking about it. Uh,
Right.
so I think like this space might go really big. And also not just because of that, because I genuinely like these are things that I'm passionate about and I want to target, I want to do more for these companies. And in terms of learnings, there have been so many learnings. Um, Learnings at a business professional level, or are you asking about learnings at like a personal level? Like when I say personal, I mean like
Any.
I remember myself or like as in business. I think maybe like there are so many, and I've shared that already with you. Cutting
Yeah.
the noise has been one of my major learnings,
Hmm.
and just being true to who you are as a person, which is also why I want to move towards green tech, and I'm very attracted to that segment, and I want to like it's like I genuinely feel like I can do good work for these companies, so I'm kind of targeting those, and also being patient. I think when you're in your 20s, I think one a person I'm still in my 20s, but um, a little bit older than you, so I'll give you gyan.
Right. Right.
But I feel like in your 20s, you're always all very worried of क्या होगा, ये हो रहा
Ah.
है, वो हो रहा है. You're always in that tension, like अब क्या करेंगे, ये. But I think um, having that, when I look back, I feel like sometimes in certain situations where I got very anxious, I should have just stayed calm and just like, waited for the emotion to kind of go down, 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 down. And when it's at its like base, then I, think with a clear head, not with like not being very anxious or ये दोस्त ये कर रहा है. उसने 10 like he earned 10 lakhs for like one client. What am I doing? Like getting into all
Hmm.
these things, I wouldn't have done, and I wouldn't have taken those steps that I had taken, um,
Right.
just to reach that target. Just because he is getting 10 lakhs from a client doesn't mean I also have to get a 10 lakhs from a client. I need to know myself first, my business first, that other person first. Then I need to make a decision, and not just because वो कर रहा है तो मेरे को भी करना है. In Web3, the reason why sharing the story is because Web3 is a space that everybody knows, a lot of money flows around. Inner people know that in this
Hmm.
industry there's a lot of money to make because everybody's starting from zero. Nobody is an expert on Web3 unless, of course, you're Vitalik or like some of the more like experienced persons in Web3. But like for non, we are all starting from the same place. So
Right.
you hear all these stories, अरे उसका पार्टी में इतना खर्च हुआ, उसका उसका ये हुआ, उसका वो हुआ, उसका क्लाइंट इतना दे रहा है, ये डीफाई एक्सचेंज इज मेकिंग दिस मच, दिस
Hmm.
कंपनी इज डूइंग दिस मच, ये एनएफटी से इतना कमाया, like he earned so much from एनएफटी. So you fall into that rabbit hole where you're like always your focus is on someone else, but you need, I feel like I should have looked more into myself. What are the skills that I think I can really have, or what are my strengths, key strengths, and I think self control is very important. Self control as in like you're not self control of your, I feel like मतलब basic self control, like you try to be like you don't put yourself in hard situations like oh मजा कर देना, I need to be like too मतलब like um, you constrain yourself, not like that, but self control in a way that I won't get affected by what others are like doing, what I'm seeing around. I'll just focus on myself and my growth, rather than, and I'll try to be more observant. Very important to be observant about yourself and also about other people. And I think yeah, I just have fun, experiment a lot at the same time, and yeah, read read books. So that's what I think that I would have done more if I had to look back.
Great. Great. That's really awesome. Um, I would like to conclude the session, even though I don't, but I would like to. Thank you so much, Shagundi, for giving your time and then energy into this session and talking and sharing about your knowledge. And yeah, really grateful for giving your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I want to commend you as well because I think you've been a really good, really great podcaster. So I think you also the way you have carried yourself in this entire conversation, plus how you maintain the flow of it, I think is very commendable.
Yeah, thank you so much. Absolutely. Yeah, see you. Bye bye,
Thank you.
Shinda.
Bye.